Hi everyone, it's Ryan. Welcome back to my channel. I just got home from work a little bit ago and we are going to have some seafood tonight. So I always love to make some cheddar garlic biscuits whenever I do seafood. So I'm gonna show you that recipe real quick. All right, so to start off with, I'm gonna be putting 2 cups of self-rising flour in my bowl here. I'm using self-rising. If you do not have it, you can use 2 cups all-purpose with 1 tablespoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So 2 cups of self-rising flour. All right, so 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm also going to be adding 1 teaspoon of baking soda. I know this is self-rising flour, but this is just gonna help it get extra fluffy. And I'm gonna go ahead and mix that up just a little bit with a fork. My baking soda was a little clumpy, so you just wanna make sure there aren't any big clumps of flour. I am gonna get in here with my hands here in a little bit to actually mix everything up. So to that, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of shortening. If you don't like using shortening, you can just use all butter. That's up to you. I'm gonna use a little bit of shortening. And then I just pulled this butter out of the refrigerator. You can put it in your freezer if you want to. I'm gonna use a grater and grate it. So I'm gonna go ahead and get 6 tablespoons of butter grated. And if you want to do this in your food processor, you can. Just be careful if you're doing it by hand that you do not A, grate your finger, and B, if you're doing it like I was, don't get your paper grated as well. So it's going pretty fast. You could do this ahead of time and just keep it in your freezer if you want to. It is melting really fast because my hands are hot. Okay, just gonna throw that in there. And then watch me struggle getting this out of here. Can you dip your hand in flour to help get that out of there? It helps the butter not stick to you as bad, or your grater. Okay, so I'm just going to toss this all in here and get it pretty well coated with the flour. And just take your hands and you're just gonna break it up and make sure that all the butter gets coated, and break it up to where it's kind of pea size. You can use a fork if you want to, or a pastry blender. I prefer to use my hands because then I can really feel when it gets to the right consistency and break it up nicely. Just breaking it all up. And I really want to make sure that I get all of that shortening mixed in. The butter I'm not too concerned with because it was grated, so it's already pretty small. And you want those little pockets of butter in these biscuits. Okay, so now I have 4 ounces of cheddar cheese. It's about 1.5 cups. I'm gonna add that in here and get it mixed up well. Just out of your way so you can see. Get that really mixed in. So these are gonna be extra cheesy. Next, I'm gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of, I'm using granulated garlic. I don't really know why, but I have a really hard time finding garlic powder in the store, especially in bulk. So I'm gonna 1/2 teaspoon of granulated garlic. And then I'm also going to use fresh garlic. So I'm gonna just use my microplane and grate it directly in there so that it's really fine, so that hopefully you don't get a giant mouthful of a large piece of garlic. So just grate it right in there. Make sure you don't get the end. I'm using 3 cloves. So this is going to be extra garlicky. I'm also going to use garlic salt later on. That's gonna go in the butter that I spread on top once they are done baking. Get the last one in here. It almost makes it form like a paste when you use the microplane. Make sure you get it all in there. And then mix this in really good so that your garlic goes everywhere. I'm gonna dig in with both hands. I'm gonna get messy. I really hate getting messy when I cook, but making biscuits is different. You're still kind of mixing up the butter in there, getting everything combined. And then I did not have buttermilk in my fridge, so I did the regular milk vinegar trick. So I added 1 cup of milk and 1 tablespoon of vinegar. All right, so I got that mixed up. I needed to wash my hands. You can see that you can still see some of the butter chunks and shortening. So that is totally fine. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of parsley. And when you're using dried herbs, you wanna make sure and crumple it up with your hands just to kind of wake it back up. Okay, get that in there. Let me check my recipe and make sure that I got everything in there. Looks like everything is in there, so I'm just gonna give this a stir. And like I said, I have 1 cup of buttermilk over here. And I'm going to slowly add that in here. I just wanna make sure that I don't get these too wet. I am gonna scoop them with one of my scoops. You could just use like a couple of tablespoons and just scoop them out that way. But I have the scoop, and that's what I usually do with these anyway. I'm gonna pour the rest of it in there. Get it mixed up really well. I can smell the garlic already. I'm so excited for these. That looks like a pretty good mixture. I maybe should have left out just a touch of the buttermilk, but these look pretty good. So I'm gonna get this area cleaned up and then I will come back and scoop them. All right, so I have my oven preheated to 425 and I just have my yellow scoop here and I'm just going to scoop these directly onto my pan. You don't have to space these out too much when you're doing them. I might actually need another pan. We'll see. You can see all of that. Oh, my stomach's growling. I am ready for dinner. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna try to squeeze these on here. I'm not gonna dirty another pan. Scoot them over. That's the beauty of these scoops. They're so easy to use. Baby scoop. Sorry, I know that's loud. And like I've said in my other videos, if you want links to anything that I'm using, it should be in the description box. If it is not in the description, send me, I guess leave a comment, and I can post a link to some of the products that I'm using. So I'm gonna get these in the oven. I'm gonna start them at about 10 minutes. I'm guessing they're gonna take around 20. So I will come back and show you how to make the butter while these are in the oven. All right, so I have 4 tablespoons of butter here. It's pretty well melted. I just melted it in the microwave. Just gonna stir the little bit that didn't melt all the way in. And to this, I'm going to add, I'm gonna do a whole teaspoon of garlic salt. You can do a half a teaspoon, a whole teaspoon. It just depends on how garlicky and salty you want it. These are kind of modeled after the cheddar garlic biscuits at a certain seafood restaurant that shall not be named, but yeah. So I really like that the outside of those is super salty and garlicky. So that's all that is in here. I have a little pastry brush here that I'm gonna use to brush the top of the biscuits once they come out of the oven. All right, so these got a little more toasty than I would recommend, but I had to break one open and try it, and they are still delicious. So I would recommend probably about 12 to 15 minutes at 425. These went for probably like 17 when I turned around after getting a few other things ready for dinner, and they were a little more toasty. So I'm just going to mix up the butter just to get all of the garlic salt off the bottom. Take my brush, get it nice and coated, and go right over all of them. So this is just going to melt down into them and make them extra delicious. And I put this on top of the one that I tried. So salty and delicious. And I'm not gonna lie, once I break them open, I keep this little bowl of butter if I don't use it all, and I dip the biscuits down into it. Because what's it gonna hurt? I'm well aware that it might actually, you know, extra butter is not the greatest for you, but listen, it's delicious. And I don't eat these that much. So I am going to take one of these and show you how fluffy they are. You can see all the parsley, the cheese is all in there. So hope you enjoy these. All right, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Let me know in the comments if you try it, and I'm gonna get started on the rest of dinner. Bye.